So guys, again the same rule will be applied here. 3 minutes of your own thinking and then we'll start. So we had completed till here, right? So now the next question. So you It's an easy one, guys. Very easy.
तो पहला जो नंबर है वो है
लिखा हुआ है ना, ऊपर लिखा हुआ है ना ब्रो, पीजे. Let me open the participants list. Mridul, try to be on time, please. Last minute, guys. Priya, try to be on time, please. It breaks my monotonicity. It breaks the rhythm. So try to be on time. So guys, time's up. Chaitanya? Chaitanya? Harsh? You can unmute and speak your answers. Harish? Rishi Raman?
हेलो सर.
Answer?
सर अभी ज्वाइन हुआ, मैं सॉल्व कर रहा हूँ.
Shubhajit?
Yes, sir.
Answer?
Sir, 3, 4, then 1, 5, and 2.
Priya? Okay, Priya has joined late. Tapan, answer?
3, 1, 4, 5, 2.
Okay, so write down your answers in chat. Now see guys, let's start. As I had mentioned that day, the first one is, 1 second. Yeah. So how is it starting? He analyzed men and women. As soon as we saw that he analyzed, who analyzed? We don't know. So it must not be an opener. First of all, try to see which is an opener sentence. Opener sentences are basically those sentences which are an independent word. That's not dependent on any other predecessor sentences, right? So now here what we are seeing, that he analyzed. Obviously, he is a predecessor. He is a successor. Some sentences must be before he. So it's not an opener. Eliminated. Then we'll see, you project forward several years and imagine your life is perfect in every respect, and then come back to where you are in present and ask what would have to happen from this point forward for me to achieve all my goals so as to create my perfect future. Correct. You are imagining something, you are asking some questions to yourselves. How would your future will be? Like if you are preparing well and well enough, if you are practicing hard, as much hard as you can in all three sections in CAT, and you are imagining your success in the future, how would it happen? And what if it happens, how would it look like? So these are some things you are imagining. It's an independent sentence, but what's happening, just try to look into that. You are imagining something after practicing something, right? So that means it's a follower sentence. You enrolled somewhere for CAT coaching, or you started preparing by yourself. Once you have started preparation, then you started imagining about your results. Okay, so it's a byproduct, you can say. It's an output, right? Obviously, it's an independent sentence. Like I have started imagining that there will be 50 students who will be participating in my class for verbal. That's what I had started imagining. But when I told you guys there will be a VA session, when I told you guys there were some students who had done well in part due to all these VA sessions. Okay, so that's why it will be a predecessor sentence. So obviously, though it's an independent one, but it's not an opener. Okay. In third, it says in Charles Garfield's studies of peak performers, he made an interesting discovery. Well, we got a subject. Who is the subject? Subject is Charles Garfield. Okay, so it might be an opener because we have gotten our subject. Again, he says he found that at the takeoff point, we don't know who he is. Don't know who he is. He can't answer. We don't know what's this all about. So that's why it won't be an opener. Okay. In blue sky thinking, you imagine that all things are possible for you. Now, from where this blue sky thinking comes? This comes after 4. 4 is talking about blue sky thinking. So it must be a successor of 4. Might be. We will see. But obviously, it's also not an opener. So that's why we got 3 as an opener sentence. Cool? Till this point, you are cool with it? Now we will see in Charles Garfield's success of peak performance, he made an interesting discovery. Okay, so what that discovery is all about. First of all, you will have to look into that. So now here, there will be a confusion. Sure confusion will be there. First confusion will be Tapan said 31452. One guy said 34152. 1 and 4 or 4 or 1. That's the only confusion, because you are seeing here that if 4 is talking about blue sky thinking and then 5 is elaborating it as in blue sky thinking. Okay, so now we are getting into some notion that 4, 5 will be our pair. Is it clear to all of you? बस कोई अनम्यूट करके बोल देना कि यस सर, अगर क्लियर है तो।
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we saw that 4, 5 is a pair. Now we will see in Charles Darwin's study of peak performance, he made an interesting discovery. What that discovery was all about? That discovery was all about that he found that at the takeoff point, every one of them began engaging in what he called blue sky thinking. Okay. As soon as we saw this word, every one of them, who are they? Who are they? Do we know who he is talking about? He might be talking about his own spouse. He might be talking about you all guys. So that's why we don't know who these them are. And that's why after 3, 4 won't be coming for sure. Because we don't know who he is talking about. Whether he has some sort of made a group of some people, random people, and he's personalizing them as them, or is he talking about his family members, someone. But we don't know who they are. And that's why 4 won't be a connector of 3. Then we will go to 1. In Charles Darwin's studies, he made an interesting discovery. Now he analyzed men and women who had achieved only average results. Now from here we are getting some conclusion. Okay, so he had taken consider some men and women who had achieved only average results, and now we can see that they are them. They are them. That them we are talking about. So that's why I say when you are visualizing something, when you are going through a para jumble, or when you are going through a verbal ability question in the form of summary based questions or odd one out, just be careful while you are reading each and every word, not each and every sentences. You should focus upon each and every word. And then we came to a conclusion, okay, in Charles Darwin, then one is connecting that because he analyzed men and women, he is being who he is Charles Darwin, whatever his name is, Darwin. Okay, so now we came to see that 3-1 is a pair. We also saw that 4-5 is a pair. Now we will see whether 1 and 4 are getting connected or not. If not, then the answer will be 3-1-2, 4-5. If 1-2 is not getting connected, then the answer will be 3-1-4-5-2. Clear? So now what we will see, okay, so let me in. Vinith, you are already in, bro. None are in the participants. Okay. Okay, so now what we will see, he analyzed men and women who had achieved average results at work for many years, but who suddenly exploded into great success and accomplishment. Now, when you are analyzing something, obviously you will be getting some conclusions about your analysis and what that conclusion is all about. That conclusion is being termed in 4. What he found upon the analysis, he found that the takeoff point for every one of them began engaging in what he called blue sky thinking. So now it was from his analysis, he came to this conclusion. And then the author is trying to elaborate what this blue sky thinking is. And then the ending sentence will be 2. So the answer will be 3-1-4-5-2. Clear? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Clear? Okay. So the guy who had given an answer 3-4-1-5-2, you got your answer. Why not 3-4? Why 3-1?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So next question. Yeah, again it is a paragraph. Three minutes, guys. time, guys. Okay. So, Shubham. Yeah, guys, try to unmute as fast as you can. Vikrant. Rishi Raman.
Hello.
Rishi, type in chat. Type in your answers, please. Fast. 41235. 41235. Okay. Cool. 41235. Cool. 41. Okay. 42513. Shubham is 42513. Okay. 42513. 415. So guys, only Shubham is correct. Now let's come to the stop typing. Stop typing. Now come to the passage. It's a tricky one. Trust me, it's a tricky one. Shubham, congratulations. Good job. See guys, what I said. We have to see the independent sentences first. Independent sentences first. One is talking about one image colorized by Amaral breaks down all barriers between past and present. Okay, so it's talking about some kind of a subject. That subject is an image that is colorized by Amaral, and that breaks all barriers between past and present. Of a devastated Damascus in 1925, taken in the aftermath of rebellion against French occupation. So there is an image that's explaining something. We are not delving into what that something is. It's talking about some rebellious youth that was there in French occupation and it was against it. And it's trying to break all barriers. So we have gotten one subject. Okay. So it might be an opener. And so as the technique spreads, will we begin to think of so which technique? Obviously not an opener. Okay. It could be 2018. What could be 2018? Not an opener. Colorization affects the viewer emotionally. The world looks richer as if black and white images imprison and purify their subjects. Again, we have been talking about something. We have gotten one subject, that's colorization, that we are talking about. Okay, and we are trying to explain how it affects something. So, okay, so it's also an independent sentence. So it must be an opener. It might be an opener. Okay, cool. Opener. So we have gotten this as an opener and this as an opener. Or will we come to see colorization as the fulfillment of the again? It's like something. Will we come to see colorization as the fulfillment of historians' fundamental task to create the past as it really was? It's asking a question. Obviously not an opener. Cool? Clear है यहाँ तक सबको? How we try to find the opener? Anyone, please.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So now see what we'll do. We'll start with any one of those. Okay. So try to start with anyone. कोई भी 1 से start करना है या 4 से start करना है?
सर मैंने 1 से किया.
1 से किया. Okay, ठीक. See, you started with one image colorized by Amaral breaks down all barriers between past and present of a devastated Damascus in 1925. Okay, so when we are talking about past and present, okay, so there is some time we are talking about 1925 and sometime that might be in the present and that's being denoted by it could be 2018. When you are trying, okay, yeah, that breaks my monotony. Who is there in the waiting room? Okay, Anurag. Okay. Okay. So see, got it? when we are trying to break the barrier between past and present, that means we are talking about some time in the past, that's 1925, and some time in the present, that might be 2018. Okay. Any other sentence is not talking about any time frame. Like if you are talking about any past time, that 1925 is there. Any other sentence is not talking about any other time zone except 2018. And that's why we can see that 1 and 3 is a significant pair. Cool. Now see, now we are having 4, 2, 4, 5. Okay. Now we will see what it is all about. Again, obviously in all these 3, 4 will be opening it. So when we start with 4, colorization affects the viewer emotionally. The world looks richer as if black and white images imprison and purify their subjects. Okay, so it's a theory that talks about when you are seeing something emotionally, when you are getting involved in solving your LRDI sets emotionally, your mind, your horizon gets broadened, your mindset gets unique in your own perspective, and you take the set as it looks like there are many data that are being present in that LRDI set. Your perspective gets broader. Cool. So as it's talking about viewing emotionally, and then what you are doing, you are trying to elaborate that LRDI sectional, the technique that you are following in your LRDI sections to your other sections too. Okay, because if you are seeing some benefits of it, you are trying to implement that in some other sections too. And that's why it's talking about is something that's colorization, some subject that's colorization. When we see it in a broader perspective with the richer terms, with the when the world looks richer, then we talk about how to spread this technique. Or suppose if I'm not taking into consideration 2, is 4, 5 a connective sentence? Colorization affects, world looks richer as if black and white images imprison and purify their subjects. Okay. Now, or will we come to see colorization as a fulfillment of the historian's fundamental task to recreate the past as it really was? Is it trying to ask that question? Just ask yourself. We have talked about colorization. Okay. Suppose I am saying that Anushruti is solving the sets very beautifully. Now, after that, can I say, suppose, can I ask that question? Will she screw up her cat? Is it a connective sentence? I am talking something positive about Anushruti, and then we are going into a negative tone. We are trying to compare a different thing. Obviously, it won't be a connector. So after 4, the only connector will be 2. Clear? Yahan tak clear hai sabko? If you have doubts, you may ask. You may unmute and ask. So once we see that 4 and 2 are connecting sentences, then it says, and so as the technique spreads, will we begin to think of monochrome images as more authentic, like vinyl chloride, or will we come to see colorization as the fulfillment of the historian's fundamental task? So now we are, suppose I say, I am doing quite good in my verbal section. Will I see that as my success in CAT, or will I have to focus on my comprehension skills too? That makes a more authentic sentence, right? So that's why 4, 2 and 5, 4, 2 and 5 are connected, and then 1 and 3 are getting connected. Now, what will be our answer? 1, 3, 4 to 5 or 4 to 5, 1, 3? Okay. So now we will see, first thing first, 4 is talking about some subject. Then we are talking about the technique. When the technique is spreads, what are our notions? Then we are talking about will we consider this as something, or will we consider it as something else? So it's the subject that we are talking about, and then we are giving one example of an image. It's just an example. We have talked about something, we have talked about colorization, and then I'll say that along with this, I'm giving you an example to put on my points and validate my points more. And that's why after 4, like after 4 to 5, 1 will be there, because 1 is an example of what we were talking about initially. We talked about colorization, we explained that, and then we talked about one significant image that tries to validate that concept of our colorization. Got it? Clear to everyone? Guys, बोल दो यार.
Yes, sir.
किसी को कोई डाउट्स है तो पूछ लो. I am saying you, किसी को कोई डाउट्स है तो पूछ लो. 4 के बाद 1 क्यों नहीं होगा? See, after 4, why colorization affects the viewer emotionally? The world looks richer as if black and white images imprison and purify their subjects. So you are talking about colorization. Cool. Let's see, you are taking, after 4, you are taking 1, because you can take that just because those are 2 independent sentences and 1 can be put anywhere. But then simultaneously you have to see, after 4 you put 1. Cool, done. I put that. After 1, obviously you will be putting 3, because of, as I talked about, it's talking about 2 time zones. After 1925 you will have to put 2018, because you are trying to remove that barrier between past and present. So after 1925 you will be putting 2018. Cool, done. 413 done. After that, what will you do? It could be 2018, and then if you will be putting 5, will it be connected? It won't. If you will be putting 2, it could be 2018, and so if the technique spreads, will we begin to think of, is it connected? No, it's not. And that's why you will have to look at all those 5 sentences now. So that's why after 4, you can put 1, but you won't get a synchronized answer in that sense. Got it? जिसका डाउट था क्लियर है? Cool तब. आवाज लैग हो रही है क्या मेरी?
सर बीच में हो रही थी, अब बेटर है.
Okay, cool. So guys, next question please. This is an odd one out. Four minutes time limit. It's a long one, so 4 minute का time दे रहा हूँ. Guys, time up. 2. Okay. So participants, Akash, Anusruti, Karthik, Mridul, Paresh, Shaibayan, Shivali, Shubham, Tapan.
4.
कौन बोला?
Tapan.
Okay. Utkarsh and Vikrant. Type in your answers as fast as you can, please. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3. Okay, guys, those who have marked 2 as an odd one out, what's your opening sentence? Just tell me fast. Okay, so let's stop here. No comments now. Done. See, guys, I have told you right now, just try to look for the subject. Be it in odd one out, be it in odd one out, or be it in parajumbles. You first have to find the subject. Okay, and here we can say it's really just a branch. What really is just a branch? We don't know, not an opener. Christopher Columbus has become such a school book stereotype. Obviously, we are talking about some subject, and that's Christopher Columbus. That can be an opener. Moon exploration doesn't involve real root expansions of thought. Okay, so we are talking about moon exploration. That might be an opener because it's just an independent sentence of that's talking about moon exploration. Okay, people keep looking for branch extensions of region that will cover Earth's more recent occurrences, but the answers aren't in the branches; they are at the roots. Okay, so cool. It might be an opener, just because it says that people look for something, but they don't look into deep where the obvious reasons are. What they want to find, they are in the roots, but they are seeking it in the branches. It might be an opener. It's an independent sentence. And then, but if you really try to hold back your present knowledge about the consequences of his trip and project yourself into his situation, then sometimes you can begin to see that our present moon exploration must be like a tea party compared to what he went through. यहाँ से तुम्हारे पास 2 आंसर्स क्लियर कट आ जाएंगे. You will be getting 2 answers straightforward. What are those 2? First of all, consequences of his trip. Whose trip? And the answer is Christopher Columbus. So that's why it won't be an eliminator. इसको तुम eliminate कर ही नहीं सकते. It will be there in the passage. Now we see that you can begin to see that our present moon exploration. So we are talking about moon exploration here, and then we are explaining what moon exploration involves and what it doesn't involve. And that's why it will not be an opener. Got that? But if you really try to hold back, but will never be opening the sentence. So now we are left with 2 and 4. We'll start with 2. Why we'll start with 2? Because we have seen that there is some connections of his trip. And that's why we got to know that 2 and 5 will be a connecting sentence. And as 2 and 5 is connecting sentence and 5 is talking about moon exploration, then 3 is talking about moon exploration and what it doesn't involve. So after 2, 5, 3 will be a connecting sentence because 5 and 3 are talking about moon exploration. So we came to it that 2, 5 and 3 will be are the sure shot connecting dots for us. And once we come to know about it, now we will see after 3 what will be there. Will it be 4 or will it be 1? So in three, it talks about, first of all, just try to create a coherence. What it is talking about. Christopher Columbus has become such a school book stereotype that it's almost impossible to imagine him as a living human being anymore. But if you really try to hold back your present knowledge about the consequences of his trip and project yourself into his situation, then sometimes you can begin to see that our present moon exploration must be like a tea party compared to what he went through. It's trying to say that our life is easy, like a tea party, compared to what he went through. If I am saying your life is a bed of roses as compared to mine, because there was no one to guide me properly in the VA section. So that's why I'm trying to compare you guys along with me, and I'm trying to say that you guys are at a beneficial juncture. And that's why, and then I am saying that, but Christopher Columbus was not. And that's why after 2, 5 came, and after 5, 3 came. Now we will see moon exploration doesn't involve real root expansions of thought. We have no reason to doubt that existing forms of thought are adequate to handle it. It's really just a branch extension of what Columbus did. Again, it's talking about Columbus. And it's an independent sentence. That's not incoherence with 2, 5, and 3. It's an independent sentence. And one is talking about what Columbus did. He explored a new phenomenon, one that would look to us today the way the world looked to Columbus. Would have to be in an entirely new direction, like into realms beyond reason. So, first of all, what he is saying? He is saying, the author is trying to mention that the life that Columbus had lived was obviously difficult from what we are living. And then he is saying he just extended a branch, he just extended one branch of his. And that was kind of a new exploration for him. And if we will see that exploration, we will imagine Columbus as Columbus would have imagined us while exploring. Obviously, when he was exploring something, he must have seen it in the entirety as a whole new thing. And when you are trying to compare yourself with Columbus, obviously you will have those phenomena that will be completely new to you. What Columbus lived, it's new to you. What you are living, it was completely in the entirety, it was completely new to Columbus. And that's why 5, 3, and 1 is making a coherence in thoughts. So 4 will be an eliminator. The answer will be 4. क्लियर है या फिर से बता दूं? Guys, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. So Tapan, now you came to 135. Tapan, now you got to know why 2, 5 is making a pair.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Clear hai?
Yes, sir.
3 opening. Those who were talking about 3 as an opener got that. Utkarsh? Utkarsh, you got it?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So guys,
Yes, sir.
let's move to the next question. This is a summary based question. Tricky one, guys. Anusruti? B. Anurag, B. 5. Who answered? Saiban? Why 5?
Sorry, I mean, D. It is D set. D. Option 4.
B, 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 B. Vikrant, B, Shubham, B, 2. So you guys have eliminated C and A. Okay. Is there anyone who is thinking that A or C can be the answer? See what this passage is talking about. It's talking about moral thinking, first thing, and then it's trying to talk about the dualities of moral thinking. Correct? Dualities between good versus evil, God versus Satan, right versus wrong, heaven versus hell. Popular mythology from humanity's fall from grace in the Garden of Eden to Star Wars is full of tales of people going over to the dark side. So mythology is trying to talk about, it's talking about many instances where humanity has entered into the dark side. But long before modern psychology told us that we all have our shadow side, an ancient Greek philosopher came up with an idea that was even more subtle. So that shows that what ancient philosophy, according to popular mythology that was there in the past, there were many tales that said that humanity had entered into the darker side, but modern psychology is trying to say that there is just one shadow side. Okay, and that was more subtle. It's not saying that whether we are entering into the darker side or whether we are entering into the brighter side. It says that it has one shadow side that might be more subtle. It is not that there are shades of gray between moral black and white. Good and bad aren't opposite at all. Okay, so it's talking about good and bad aren't opposite at all. Modern psychology is talking about this. Rather, the good is a mean that stands between two bads. Okay, good is a mean that stands between two bads. That of excess and that of deficiency. Courage, for instance, is the mean between the, and then it's trying to give an example that courage is a mean between excess of rashness and deficit of cowardice. Mercy is the mean between the excess of vengefulness and the deficiency of surrender. It's a brilliant idea that utterly transforms how you look at right and wrong. So see, there are three concepts. First of all, in our moral thinking, there is some duality where we are trying to compare the good versus evil, God versus Satan, etc., etc. And there are some popular mythology in the past that's trying to justify that people loved to, or whether they loved to or didn't love to, that's not discussed in the para, but it's talking about people had gone over to the darker side. In the past, in the history, humanity had entered into the darker side. It's being talked in popular mythology. And then came the modern psychology that says that it's just a mean between the good and bad. Okay, so that's it. ठीक है, इतना ही बस पैसेज में बात किया जा रहा है. And then we came to know about some of the examples, like the example of mercy, like the example of courage, etc., etc. And then there is one more stanza that good and bad aren't opposite at all. Rather, the good is a mean that stands between two bads. Now come to the options. Good and bad are not opposites. Rather, they are the mean between two opposite phases. Good, the mean between two bad phases, and bad, the mean between two good phases. straight away eliminated just because it's only said that good is a mean between two bads. Not that this statement that is given here, good the mean between two bad phases and bad the mean between two good phases. Obviously, it's not discussed. And that's why it will be eliminated. Now come to B. While moral thinking is mostly about dualities, we have talked about it, and modern psychology avers that everyone has a dark side. This is also being talked, that modern psychology is not trying to validate this statement that was mentioned in popular mythology. Rather, it has its own opinion. And that says that it's not, we are not talking about good and bad. At the extremity, we are talking about the mean value of it. So, and that's why modern psychology avers that everyone has a dark side. It's also true because it doesn't coincide. The idea of modern psychology does not coincide with the psychology of popular mythology. So till here, it's correct. An ancient Greek philosopher came up with the notion that good and bad weren't extremes. Rather, good separated the two bads of superfluity and paucity. Paucity means scarcity. Okay. So it's talking about that somewhere it's been talked that good separated the two bads of superfluity and paucity. So here it is also mentioned good is a mean that stands between two bads. And here two bads are superfluity and paucity. And so we might consider this as an option. Obviously, we are not marking it as an answer. We might consider it. Then it's given an ancient Greek philosopher provided us with a subtle version of modern psychology's core belief that good is not the opposite of bad, but just an intermittent period between two bad extremes. Perfect. It's also true that good is not an in here it's said 1 second. Guys, is it visible now? Am I audible? Guys, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir, audible.
There was some network issue in the meanwhile. So मैंने मतलब हाथ खांसी आई ना तो मेरे हाथ से लग गया था वाईफाई पे तो पता नहीं कुछ हो. Okay, so we were talking about कि we can consider this right now. Now we will see in C. It said an ancient Greek philosopher provided us with a subtler version of modern psychology's core belief that good is not the opposite of bad, but just an intermittent period between two bad extremes. Here, what it says, an ancient Greek philosopher came up with an idea that was even more subtle. It is not that there are shades of gray between moral and black and white. Good and bad aren't opposite at all. Okay. So this notion is being provided by an ancient Greek philosopher. Got it. But what here it says that modern psychology has this belief. But this belief was there from Greek philosopher, not modern psychology. And that's why it won't be an answer. Now coming to D, modern psychology opposes moral thinking, steeped in dualities. Okay, cool, perfect. And finds support in the subtle theory of an ancient philosopher who believed that it is not shades of gray that separate good and bad, but good which separates two bads. Cool. Concepts are given clearly that this is something modern psychology is opposing moral thinking steeped in dualities. That's perfect. Moral thinking was something about duality of good and evil, God versus Satan, something, something, and finds support in the subtle theory of an ancient philosopher. Is it finding the support? Just try to see the popular mythology and the modern psychology. Is popular mythology trying to support the modern psychology? Is the idea of an ancient philosopher trying to support or validate that statement? No, it's not. One is talking about that we were going over the darker side, and the other is talking about we are taking the mean value. So these two notions are different, not the same. And that's why only due to this word, and finds support in the subtle theory of an ancient philosopher. This is invalidated. Else everything was perfect. Everything. That it is not shades of gray that separates good and bad, but good which separates two bad. Perfect. Here it's given. Good is a mean that stands between two bad. But it's not trying to support the theory. That's why I said in the yesterday's class also, I said you will easily be able to eliminate two options. But once you try to eliminate other two options, you will have to be more considerate. You'll have to be more minute. You'll have to go through each and every words. Got it? Understood, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, can we say third one as alien option because nowhere core belief is given? Yes, obviously you can. It's not the psychology's core belief. It's here it says that psychology had some ideas, but whether it was its core belief, see, core belief is an extreme sentence, and that's why you can eliminate that. Got it, Tapan? Okay. So next question करना है या फिर खत्म करना है? Guys, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन करना है या खत्म करना है? कोई तो बोल दो.
नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन सर.
दैट्स ग्रेट. मैं यही सुनना चाहता था. चलो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन करते हैं. ऑड वन आउट. आसान है. कितना टाइम हो गया? Time up, guys. 2, कार्तिक 2, विकी 5, अदर्स कौन कौन है? आकाश, अनुराग, अनुश्रुति, कार्तिक, मृदुल, परेश, शुभम, तपन, विकी।
2.
चैट में लिख दो। अनुश्रुति 2, 5, 2, अनुराग 2, तपन 2, 5, 2, 5. So guys, those who have marked 2, correct. See, बहुत आसान था ये, कुछ नहीं करना है तुम्हें. You don't have to see each and every sentences even. Just read all these sentences. To begin a sentence with architecture is a bold step into treacherous territory. Most days architecture is a tough practice. On others, it is wonderfully satisfying. And yet many of us have uttered or at least thought architecture is, while we have toiled away on an important project or reflected on why we have chosen this professional path. There are at least as many definitions of architecture as there are architects or people who comment on the practice of it. While some embrace it as art, others defend architecture's seminal social responsibility as its most definitive attribute. खत्म. बस मैंने इतना पढ़ा. I noticed two things. One is कि no one, when we are trying to define architecture as architecture is, we are trying to make a very bold move, and still some people are there who start or at least think of starting with architecture is, and that's why 1 and 3 are making a coherent pair. Now I'll see there are at least as many definitions of architecture as there are architects or people who comment on the practice of it. While some embrace it as art, who are these some? These some are the architects or people. While some embrace, it's trying to say that there are many definitions of architecture. What are those many definitions? Those many definitions are in the form of those which are being impressed by someone as art, and others defend architect's seminal social responsibility as its most definitive attribute. So someone is trying to explain it in the form of art, whereas someone tries to explain it in the form of social responsibility. So that's why 4 and 5 is making a proper connection. 2 is straight away eliminated. Hardly this question would have taken 1.5 minutes. Hardly. And 2 is talking about most days architecture is a tough practice, on others it is a wonderfully satisfying. So it is defining something, and that's architecture, and that's not related to it. It might would have come in the initial part of the passages, or it might would have come in the latter part of the passage. Most probably in the initial part, because architecture is trying to explain architecture is a tough practice in some days, while in some others it is satisfying. Why is it satisfying? Why is it tough practice on some days? Those might have been explained in that stanza, in that paragraph, but that paragraph is not related to 1, 3, 4, 5. And that's why 2 is the answer. Got it, guys? So today we have done 2 PZ, 2 summary, and 1 odd one out. Let's stop it here, guys. We will continue tomorrow at the same time. Cool. And do give your reviews, guys. How was the class? If I'm asking you, so that more people can attend it. Just because, see, if you guys are, if only 6 or 7 guys are there in the class, obviously I'm giving 1.5 hours of mine. And for the 1.5 hours, I have to prepare this PPT and everything. It consumes around 2 hours. Got that? So if I am investing 2 hours and only 6, 7 people will be attending the session, that don't justify my efforts. So that's why if I'm asking you, how was the class, just give your reviews, honest reviews. Obviously, I always say that whenever we ask you that how was the class, just give your honest reviews, what you felt. Okay, na? But yeah, do ask your friends to attend these sessions. It will be fruitful to them. Good night, guys. Love that you all were there till the end. Bye bye. Take care. कल मिलते हैं morning 10 बजे. Yeah.